Hi there. Welcome to Tech Talk Weekly. I'm Bob from Creation Station. This is our weekly show where we give you 4 or 5 or 10, in this case today, links to really interesting tech and science stories out there in the news from this week. If there's something you want to see us feature on the show, Creation Station at Broward.org comes right to me. Just remember, we got to try and get those things on from this week. I had interesting stories this week from last week that we couldn't put on the show. But today I've got Anthony from South Regional Library. How are you doing, sir?
Very good. Doing good. And yourself?
Life is great. Going into the long holiday weekend, it's going to be a lot of fun here. Long holiday weekend here in the States. Sorry for you guys out there in the rest of the world. But it's going to be okay. We got some good fun stories today. We got some horrible stories today. We'll try to make sense of it, sort of, kind of. Maybe give you a smile even. Who knows?
Looking forward to it.
So, story number 1, to give you a smile, to get us started off. Because, weeks like this where there's a lot of stress out there in the rest of the news, I try to make sure we have at least one fun story. And this is kind of fun. So, out there in the North Atlantic, orcas are adopting pilot whale cubs, calves, I guess calf is a correct word for it, and bringing them into their pods and bringing them into their family groups. Yeah, Anthony, tell me, what's your take on this? Is this a good or a bad thing?
My take, honestly, I think it's kind of a good thing. We in science, when it comes to animals, we talk a lot or focus a lot about evolutions of a specific species, and then here we have two totally different species, like the killer whale that's typically known as to be violent in nature, along with the orcas, something a little bit more passive, and they're just together, swim together. It's almost kind of like instead of a evolution of one species, more like a cross evolution of two species together.
Which is a great idea. I love that for you. Thank you, Anthony. That's the great positive side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's the orcas taking off and keeping a baby and just siphoning it off from the other family and then keeping it around for a snack later on. That's the fun of science, folks. You never know exactly what. Now, so what we do know is it's been seen 3 different times, and researchers have not figured out exactly what the killer whales are doing. They seem to have raised them to a certain degree, but they also have seen them with dead ones, so they're not sure what's happening with this. Are they finding them dead? Or are they finding them alive? Are they escorting them out to another family group? Because they normally don't live in the same area. So it's a really interesting little story to kind of go dive into. And as always, we always have our links in the show notes for you so that you can make your own mind up about these ideas and see what you think. Okay, go, Anthony, tell me.
So yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from. They could be saving it for dinner later on, because it definitely seems more of like an opportunistic situation for the orcas. But honestly, it could go either way just because of the nature of the killer whale. So I think we could also be seeing something completely different in this sort of species.
And I'm going with you on this one.
Yeah.
I'm going with the idea that they're at least being nice to them and raising them up a little bit, keeping them alive and helping them survive for whatever reason. That I'm happy with that. We need a good, positive, nice story. I like it.
No, of course.
Now, the next one, I'm going to give you a quick synopsis here, and then I'm going to click through a couple of links while you tell me, Anthony.
Okay.
So in the news over the last few days, we've had some horrible tornadoes. Mm-hmm. We have had some flooding.
Yeah.
And we've had some other bad storms happen across a good chunk of the Midwest, from Louisiana all the way up through St. Louis and across over into Kentucky. So a huge chunk of the United States. And part of the problem with these is in so many of the budget cuts that have happened from the federal level, that some of these areas now no longer have immediate warnings. So as an example, there's a good article to lead us off here on where the actual weather for your weather apps and your local weather stations comes from. And then the idea that in Kentucky, there was no one in the building to actually press the button to say, hey, there's a tornado coming, to let people know. And again, another for the other thunderstorms that were hitting over St. Louis. And again, moving to the CDC side of things, we haven't heard anyone report any bird flu cases in 3 months. Is that because the funding's not there to collect the data? Is that because there is no transmission? Is that because people are afraid to come forward to admit that they know something's wrong? And it's a whole thing of why is this not happening? So there's not a lot you and I can do about it, Anthony. But what do you think is the best idea to try and get the point across to help people save themselves?
Well, so I definitely do think this is due to, the cuts of the federal funding for these organizations, like the National Weather Service. They don't have enough people to staff them, especially overnight when this needs to be monitored 24 hours, because a natural disaster can hit like that when the moment's notice, especially a tornado of all things. So
I grew up in Michigan with tornado warnings and going by.
Man.
Yeah.
And, I just think that we need to put more money into these services, because it's vital to saving human lives. We talk about putting money into other things, other problems in the country, but this is something that's very overlooked. It's our alert system.
Yep, I am looking for. There was one of the articles on one of the videos. It's not in my list here that I put on. There's some good areas where there's a handful of spots around the United States that just do not have coverage at certain times of the day anymore for these things. So the best advice I can find from anyone out there, from any of the experts, is to pay attention to your weather apps and to add apps or to add additional areas to your map. So if you're down here in South Florida, don't just have South Florida as part of on your app. Have it giving you warnings for Central Florida also. Or if you were out there in the Midwest, instead of just St. Louis or just Kentucky, two very distant places across the country, pick some place in between, pick some place a little bit north or south of you, so that hopefully those weather areas will get into your alerts, and you'll have at least a little bit of an advanced warning saying, hey, this place got an alert an hour ago. That means it might be coming my way.
I completely agree.
Yeah. It's a weird little thing.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Now, we talked about diseases. Did you know we're getting diseases in space now?
Oh, man. Sounds like a sci-fi movie.
Space germs. This is insane. Again, this is also partially, people don't always remember. There are multiple space stations up there currently. The two ones with people on them are the United States International Space Station with the European Union, Russia, and the United States in it. And the other one is China has their own space station that's manned all the time by their own astronauts and running all the time. And they have found a new bacteria that grew up, evolved on their space station on their own.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is astonishing to see. Like I said, it's like something from a sci-fi movie, like the movie Alien or something like that, but I think this is a very good discovery. It could help in the advancement of like technology to protect our astronauts out there or their astronauts, building a sort of immunity to certain diseases, because you never know. We could over time, we can just develop our own evolution of immunity to diseases, just like how we have with diseases from the past in human history.
Yeah, and that's one of the really cool things about this particular little bacteria is it operates in very low oxygen environments. And so this came about in 2023. So, it takes a good 12, 18 months do your research, do your studies, have them vetted by other scientists, then release them to the public. And so they're beginning to figure out, okay, wait a minute, if this bacteria can exist in this place with all this radiation and low oxygen levels, etc., what else could it adapt to? How else could we use those adaptations, like you said, on humans or on other species that we're going to take up into space?
Mm-hmm.
So it is really interesting for that. I want to cross my fingers and hope, but one of these things is all about getting rid of the byproducts of oxygen in your cells, which is part of the aging process.
Wow.
So now we're talking decades of study and decades of work. So this is not going to even help you. Sorry, Anthony. I'll be long gone and you probably won't get helped. But somebody in the future might, by finding things like this, be able to say, hey, wait a minute. And this is one of the ways we can prolong life, et cetera, and do things.
Right.
So why we need to fund space. Right?
Yeah, no, it's definitely, even though we may not see it in our lifetime, the whole point of these discoveries is for the future generations, is to help the advancement of the human race overall.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That is the whole idea.
Yeah.
And other new, very cool things happening in science. 3D printing, which is, we've been doing it here in the library, if you don't know, since 2014. We've been printing. We do stuff here at Main Library. We do a couple hundred or more 3D prints for the public, all for free every month. We are not doing this kind of 3D printing, though. So what this type of new 3D printing for doing medical printing for your body. Now, if you remember this from like 3 years ago, season 2 on the show, we talked about some 3D printing of mesh and stuff like that to help rebuild ears and for other body parts, more cartilage type stuff to let the stuff grow over it. This is totally different. This is taking and injecting something into your body, a person's body for a reason, and then you hit that injection spot where the gel that you've injected into the person, you hit that with ultrasound, and it changes that gel into a new form, and you can do different things with that form. In this case, they're using it to delay release of medicines, of applying something that goes deeper in that they couldn't normally get there, or you would have to put into the bloodstream and have to really pump the body with a whole bunch of stuff before it could work. So it goes in and it goes in. And as always, we've got a link to the actual article there to do it. So you can go read. If you can get through all the jargon, this is another one of those that I had did you even try the jargon there, Anthony?
I gave it a shot and I did the best I could, but that's out of my
isn't it
practice. Mm-hmm.
Isn't it? It gets really, really crazy on some of the stuff. But so the shortcut version of this is because you can inject this down 1.5 inches into your body, you can bypass all the skin, all the other layers of stuff, get it right into some organs, get it right into your muscle tissues, and then hit it with the ultrasound to change it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is astonishing. Honestly, that's such an amazing advancement, especially using 3D printing. I feel like this could help a lot with new ways to help, like for chemotherapy, to cure cancer.
Yep.
Of course it's going to take some time, but hey, this is a step forward.
Yeah. And again, and for those who haven't been watching our show for very long, stories like this is not something like, oh, we think it could happen. This is working. This has been tested in humans and mice, and it is working out there in the field. Now, it's not something everybody can just walk into their doctor's office and get, obviously.
Of course.
But we're on, the first real humans have been testing and using this kind of stuff for exactly what you were saying, for doing things. And some of them are kind of, they seem silly, but they're really good projects. Like those pictures at the very beginning. They just took a generic gel, injected it in, and because of the polymers in the gel and hitting it with the ultrasound just the right way, you can change it so it actually forms into a little star shape inside of the body,
Wow.
which means you could open up holes inside the body so you could reinforce things. So if you've got torn muscles or torn that, or if you can really get good at this, you could replace bones.
That's amazing.
Again, this is something that's, a long ways off being able to do this,
Of
but
course.
we're on those first steps down that path
Right.
to just zzz, and then wave the ultrasound over them and bam, they're good to go.
Right. I would say I would give this a good, maybe another between 50 to 80 years. I know it sounds like a huge amount of time, but
You could be using this to replace entire bones.
to retire
Like
bones. Yeah. So
the person breaks his arm, and here we go. We'll inject you with this polymer,
yeah.
and now we wave the wand over you, and bzzz, now you've got a fully rehealed bone inside of you.
Right. Like all of this is like
Science
fantasy coming to
fiction.
life. Yeah, exactly. That's why I think it will take a good amount of decades for it to be perfected and common.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's already at the point where there's no toxicity, and
Okay.
it goes away in 7 days if it's not used.
Oh, really?
The body just flushes it out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Well, hey.
So cool, fun stories.
Yeah.
Science fiction coming to life. We've got some good stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Unfortunately, we have one more science fiction story coming to life that's not so great. So if you've been scammed by somebody attempted to scam you by calling you, by texting you, emailing you, etc. Yes, they've attempted to scam you, or you fell for something, hopefully not. Make sure you change your passwords, etc. Don't give money to people. Don't fall for the AI scams, except that the people who are doing the AI scams are people who already fell for the scam of getting hired to a real tech job, and now they're in labor farms, human trafficking, and they are now running the background stuff for the scammers. They were scammed into doing a job they didn't know they were going to be doing, and now they're scamming people. There's just not a fun bit to the story at all.
No, it's very unfortunate, and the fact that they're essentially forced to be put in those positions, it's like also like a life-threatening thing. We were worried about like years back, getting scammed out of our money, and now it's changed, like getting scammed into jobs, getting employment. So it's just funny how that changed over the time.
And this is not like a small thing happening. This is over in Indonesia and in the Philippines, and a lot of Southeast Asia has to put up with this right now.
Yeah.
And this is also happening in the United States. Don't be fooled by thinking that, that's happening to someone else. There's a different article, how I got to this article this week, which is from Rest of World. There was a different article on LinkedIn of all places talking about how scammers were using AI to offer up fake jobs to convince people to give them personal information, thinking they were applying for a job when it was really a scammer just trying to steal their information. And it's just, this is not the future. This is not the future we're supposed to have. We're supposed to have a fun, easy future. Maybe not easy, but at least, the challenges should be like, how do we fix broken bones, and not how do I tell if the person's a real person or an AI scamming me?
Right. And one thing, Bob, how they get people with these jobs, especially here in the United States, is they're big on advertising. Oh, remote work from home. Who doesn't want to work from home?
Yeah.
Really. And so people are just quick to jump on that, and they just sadly fall into this trap.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where if it sounds too good to be true, and you can't verify it, like we talked about the story last week, there are people who are beginning to say, unless I can talk to you in person, not even over video, because some of the AI video stuff is so good, I need to talk to you physically in person before I will give you this information. Yeah. We are in interesting times.
We definitely are. Well, hopefully something can be done about it in the future.
We will. By keeping people informed like this, people
Yes.
hopefully learn something. Keep it in the back of their mind. They wait a minute. Those guys told me about this thing, and hopefully they remember.
Yeah. You know,
That didn't the show just fly by, Anthony? Your first time on?
it did. It definitely did. This was a fun experience. We had good topics for this week.
Yeah.
You know, definitely enjoyed the new
Thanks.
advancements in technology, and I loved being here. Thank you just for having me here.
And if there is someone at one of the Creation Station locations you'd like to see featured on the show one week, reach out. Creation Station at broward.org. We'll see everybody Tuesday for the monthly show. Have a great time.